Hi, I'm Allie Jackson Jolly. I'm here with Jon-Jorge Aras. He is a legal expert. He is also a partner with Scarency and Hollenbeck. Jon-Jorge, welcome and thanks for being here with us.
Thank you so much.
I'm hoping you'll help us wade through these uncharted territories. I'm talking about the fact that in Illinois, a circuit court judge has ruled that candidate Trump can be left off of the Illinois primary ballot. So, what should we know about this? What does this really mean?
This is very interesting. And with Trump, there really is no unprecedented territory. It always seems to be something new. In this case, is no different. We have a previous case that sort of outlines for us what's happening here in Illinois. We have the case that was just heard before the Supreme Court regarding Colorado. And in that state, Trump was removed from the ballot. This is the same on the same basis. Trump was removed from the Illinois ballot based on a circuit court ruling from an Illinois judge because he was involved in what they claim was allegedly participating in the insurrection or causing the insurrection. And there's a very limited clause in the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution that essentially limits a person's ability to serve for the United States government if they were involved in insurrection. And that's what's being used here. So these cases, the Illinois case and the Colorado case, are quite similar in that the basis to remove Trump is the same. And it's taken on by a group of voters that are saying that because Trump participated allegedly in insurrection, he is not eligible to be a presidential candidate. And we have a preview of what this looks like from the Supreme Court because oral argument was just held. And it appears that across the board, the justices were pretty skeptical about a state's ability to remove Trump from the ballot. And some of the main concerns really had to do with disenfranchising voters. Now, although Biden won the election, approximately 70 million people did vote for Trump. So there's a lot of people out there in the United States that support Trump. And the justices were concerned. And I think we're seeing it play out now that this type of action on an individual state by state basis can be led to get Trump off the ballot. And it could become very political based off of the judges that are appointed and the powers that be, whether they're Democrat or Republican in those individual states. So the cases are very similar, and the Colorado decision will have an implication on the Illinois case that we have before us now.
And so, the primary for Illinois is coming up quickly in March 19th, I believe. Um, Obviously, this circuit court is not it's not even a court of appeals for the Illinois. It's not the Supreme Court. Is there time to have for all of this to meet out before March 19th? Or does it look like those Illinois voters will be voting, with a ballot with or without President Trump on it before it makes it all the way up to the US Supreme Court?
So presently, the entry of the order was stayed, giving Trump the opportunity to file an appeal, which he has. So the order has been made, but its effect has not gone forward, meaning that Trump should appear on the ballot on March 19th, pending the resolution of this order. I think the judge understood the context in which all of this is occurring and obviously is aware of the case in front of the Supreme Court from the Colorado case, which is really the exact same issue. And I imagine that when the court comes down with that decision, it is going to broadly address these other cases because otherwise, as I stated before, we're going to have a state by state basis of voters potentially bringing a claim stating that Trump participated in an alleged insurrection and therefore pursuant to the 14th Amendment of the Constitution, he is not eligible to become president of the United States. I imagine that the court sees this coming down the pipeline and is going to address it broadly because we're in an election year. It's critical that this matter gets resolved well in advance of November.
Yeah, and so when do we expect a ruling from the Supreme Court, US Supreme Court on Colorado? Do you have any sense when we may get an answer on how those justices rule?
I think this Illinois order adds to the urgency and the expediency the court is going to need to address this. Otherwise, there may be other challenges popping up throughout the year, or could be popping up as soon as tomorrow in different states. So I suspect that the Supreme Court is going to answer this sooner rather than later because they need to quell this type of litigation. As you mentioned before, a case that has to travel through state court, through the Supreme Court, through the federal district court, through the circuit court, and then all the way up to the Supreme Court, it's a lengthy process. I mean, in a typical case, if I were to represent someone from state court all the way up and through the Supreme Court, should they decide to hear the case, we're talking about years and years and years that go by. The Supreme Court knows the waters that they're in and understands that they have to make a decision quite soon. So I expect that we'll hear something back from the court in the near future. That being said, they have to work furiously on writing an opinion. They have to have a detailed opinion. This is going to become the law of the land and interpreting this. So it's that balance between getting it right, doing a diligent and a good job, and facing the reality of the times that we're in now. And these states and these judges have not shied away from making this decision, which is a huge decision, meaning that voters cannot cast a ballot for Trump. He won't even appear on it.
No, so, and if, assuming that the US Supreme Court provides a decision on that Colorado case, and assuming, as many legal experts believe, that they will leave candidate Trump the ability to stay on the Colorado ballot, will there be any other way that you foresee that different states, including Illinois or Maine, can strike candidate Trump off the ballot? Or do you think once that Supreme Court decision is made, that's sort of the end of this and we'll move forward to primaries?
Well, we're living in a very interesting landscape for Trump. So take a step back. This is one case, the election interference case tied into the alleged insurrection. That's one of the indictments. We have other cases that are ongoing. We have the case in Florida related to Trump's possession of classified documents, whether or not he violated the law in possessing certain documents. That's another case that the Department of Justice has brought. We have the Fulton County case in Georgia for election interference. We have a broad range of ongoing cases that could lead potentially to a conviction for Trump, which then the states may say or may make an initiative, or the board of electors may say in those individual states that Trump is not eligible based on a felony, being found guilty of a felony. Now, that being said, also earlier this week, we had a major decision from the Supreme Court in deciding to hear Trump's case on immunity. They're willing to hear his case on immunity, and they're also willing to stay the further prosecution of Trump in the indictments brought by the Department of Justice. This was a major boon for Trump because it sets these cases well back on the timeline. So it limits the risk ultimately of him going to trial before the election occurs and potentially being prosecuted before the election occurs. So everything is really tied together, and it's all this nebulous mix that ends up hinging on the Supreme Court and its decisions. It has two really major decisions in front of it. One, the Colorado case and what it means for these states to bring these claims of election interference and insurrection and whether he can remain on the ballot. That's a massive case. And then, second to that, whether he has immunity as president for engaging in the conduct that the Department of Justice said amounted to election interference. So they're tied together, they're different issues, but this will shape the future of whether in November Trump will be on the ballots and whether he will face further prosecution. I mean, they could decide that he ultimately is immune and doesn't face further prosecution, but at the very, very least, the cases and the indictments are now slowed, which I believe was Trump's defense strategy. Slow everything down, delay it, and the closer you push it to the election, the more unlikely it's going to be that the cases are going to go forward, because that in and of itself could amount to some form of election interference. And as we all know, the political spectrum now is very divided, and we have narrative going on that Democratic prosecution or people in the government are attempting to eliminate their biggest threat here in the general election, which is Donald Trump. So if these prosecutions get close and these cases get close to the time of the election, I think it's likely that they will be delayed till after the election actually occurs. I mean, it's really unprecedented times in the state of this presidential election and what's going to happen throughout 2024.
Yeah, well, thank you for help being here with us to make sense of this. We're out of time. Um, I think that I think that the summary I would give from everything you've said is that there's a lot of different ways that this could still hash out. There are a lot of more conversations to be had, and I look forward to keeping the conversation going. Well, you're welcome back to do it with us another time. Thanks so much.
I would love to. Thank you so much.